Yeah, that's a lot of kills and one death with just heavy attacks. Stick around to see what we're doing. This is nuts. Hey, it's Dan, and welcome back to Unified Gaming. Now, in this one, I'm going to go through and give you an update to the heavy attack hero. This is for Markarth, and I suspect that it will work in the next patch because I can't see the sets being nerfed. As with this one though, I'm going to go through and show you in much more detail just the different options you can do, because I've been using this for the past 3 or 4 weeks now live, and honestly the flexibility is just ridiculous. Like, you have 2 skills you need and everything else is up to you. So we're going to go through all of that, and if you haven't done so, do make sure that you are subscribed because many of you are still not. But with introductions out of the way, let's just get into it. So for the race, you actually have a few options. The most kind of rounded one, in all honesty, for damage and just ease of play is a Dark Elf. That's mainly because you get magic and stamina, and you also get spell damage. Because we do consider vampirism to give us bulk if you like, it's actually quite useful to have just the immunity to burning as well, so it's just a nice bonus. But if you want to have just stupid armor, like pushing 30k armor on physical and spell easily at all times, you can go as a Nord, and that's a really good option. So for me personally, Dark Elf, Nord are going in just for the Olno button with the potion passive. But race wise it makes very little difference, damages from the sets. As with kind of the Mundus and attributes, I've actually put all of my points into health this time. So you can see that everything is in health, and you're probably going, but you're going to lose damage. And yes, you do. You lose about 200 damage per tick of the heavy attack, which means for the whole heavy attack it's about 600 less damage for gaining like 20k health. So for me, just from playing it, it's much more useful having the health than it is just a little bit of extra damage. That said, you can mix this up how you see fit. If you're a Nord, just put a bit more on magic to offset it. So play around, but in all honesty, health is the way to go for this. Mundus wise, we're using the Lover Mundus. This buffs our heavy attacks even further, buffs it the most, so that's just the best one for this. If you want to have just slightly bigger heals though, you can use the Apprentice, but Love is kind of the way to go. As with kind of food, I use Bewitched Sugar Skulls, as you can see. So Bewitched Sugar Skulls is a great food option. It gives you health, magic and stamina. The health regen is okay, but it's not sort of necessary. As for kind of potions, I actually use Tri-Stat Potions. So this gives us health, magic and stamina. It covers kind of everything we need. As you can see, it's 36.3 seconds, so I would highly recommend you get the medicinal passive. I don't normally mention it, but in the alchemy, this down here actually is really helpful. So just by having that one passive there, our potions now last 47 seconds, so honestly do get it if you can. It's quite easy to level up. There's a guide on the channel. As with kind of the skills, this is where it becomes quite interesting. So I've got a few options with what you can do. This is the damage setup, like the best one for just damage and ease of use. So you want Flame Lash. This is not here for damage, it's here for the heal. So it's an 11.4k heal. So when people come into melee range, we do Fossilize, Flame Lash, and we get a big heal back, which means we can just finish them off. And we have all of elements because we're using the Maelstrom Lightning Staff. So that just means our lightning damage goes up by about 2,000 damage roughly. So, have this on the floor at all times. If they kind of come near you, fossilize them inside it, and they just take stupid damage and you just whip them to death. You also notice that I have a new weapon, like a new skill. It's called Crushing Weapon on the front bar, and you're going, why are you using this? It's a stamina skill, so it procs one of our sets, an Undaunted Unweaver, which is really useful. And what's really cool about this skill though is that it actually refunds most of the cost. So when we cast this, we proc the set, and because we're doing a heavy attack, not a light attack, this means that 1300 stamina is given back to us. So it's a really good way to keep the set active for very little stamina cost, and was a real game changer. And then for more good measure, we actually use Structured Entropy. Structured Entropy is really good. It's a dot, heal over time, but it's mainly for the passive that you can't see on the skill. So down in the Mage Guild, there's a passive called Might of the Guild, and unfortunately you have to get this to level 10. But what this will do is give you Empower that lasts 3 seconds, and this buffs the light and heavy attacks, which means the entire channel is buffed by 40%, which is a big damage boost. And it lasts 3 seconds, which is actually perfect because heavy attacks are 3 seconds, they're like just under it. So it means that what we do normally is we cast Crushing Weapon to proc the set in the front bar, Entropy, and heavy attack. And what will happen is we'll proc this set, we'll have the other set active already, and we have a massive 40% damage boost with a dot on them. And it lasts for the whole time. And whilst you're holding the heavy attack, you can push the structure to Entropy again, which will recast it when the heavy attack's finished, which will then proc it a second time, the Empower. You can do a second heavy attack, which will kill the person. So it's really easy to kill people on this. And then we use Ferocious Leap as a kind of execute almost. So if anybody's in melee range, we can do a heavy attack, cast this whilst we're heavy attacking, and this will then do the animation straight away. So as soon as we land the heavy attack, this will then land on them, and they're typically dead. If not, you just hold heavy attack, and whilst you're doing the fly bit, and then it will land the heavy attack as soon as you land. So they just take, again, loads and loads of damage. And if they're not dead, you've got access to Flame Lash because they're stunned, so you get the nice big heal anyway. So loads and loads of killing power on that front bar, but good ultimate buttons due to Fossilize and Blockade of Storms. That bar is a bit more simple. We're using armor buff, so volatile armor. You can use the other one if you like. They make no difference, to be honest. Coagulating Blood is amazing. This is like your burst heal. It's like 4 to 6k like normal, and then if you're low health it's like 8k, so it's a really powerful heal. We then use Combat Prayer on the damage spec. This gives us armor, which is really helpful, and it also gives us Minor Berserk, so this is quite a useful thing to have, and it's a heal, so really cool. I then have Soul Trap, which I don't actually use. This is a flex spot, so if you need something in your kit, an extra heal over time, more damage, you can change it to whatever you like, and this is a really good thing to just switch out. So I'm just leaving it here as a flex spot. I don't actually cast it, so you could just go down to support and put on any of these and then get access to Magicka Aid. So loads and loads of options there. And we then use Molten Armaments, which is like what makes DK the best heavy attack build, period. I know people say Sorcerer and stuff, and it's this 50% boost. So when you have this active, your heavy attacks do 50% more damage, and that buffs all the sets as well. So it means our sets get buff our heavy attacks, and this buffs that again afterwards, which means our heavy attacks do stupid damage with this skill. And what's really cool is this buffs every part of the heavy attack, the channel, and the final hit. So when you compare it to like Templar and to Sorcerer, like Sorcerer only has Amplitude and the Shock passive, so you get 15% bonus damage, whereas this is just a flat 50 at all times. And you can put on things like Combat Prayer with Minor Berserk, so you can buff that damage just really high with just this skill alone, let alone the other stuff we can do. And then we have Temporal Guard, which is for minor protection. As you'll see in the gameplay though, I do actually double bar leap, and that's just because I like having access to leap on both bars. It's kind of a good get out of jail button. So you'll see that when you cast it, it gives you a really big shield. And because we don't use our ultimate often, it's typically there always. So those are the skills. That's what I'd use for the damage setup. Just copy it as it is. But honestly, you want this skill in the front bar. Real game changer. If for some reason you don't have Sigil Order though, simply go down to Undaunted. There's a few skills that are stamina based that you can grab, which are quite useful. Inner Fire, morph it to Inner Beast. The target actually takes 5% more damage when this is on them, but you have to cast it on them. Whereas this one, we can cast pre-fight, so we can be buffed up straight away, which is what's really nice about it. Alternatively, you could go with Bone Shield and do it pre-fight, but it does cost a lot of stamina. However, you do get a big shield, and you can go with Spike Bone Shield, which actually reflects damage back when we get hit. So, there's quite a few options. So that there is like the damagey setup. The second setup, which is really cool, is actually the groups one that I prefer. This is something that's really different skill-wise. So I'm just going to show you this now. So this is set up with 2. Now on this one, we trade a few things just to give us more utility. And this is my preferred one, in all honesty, because people don't expect it. On the front bar, everything's the same apart from the B skill, so the Wall of Elements, we actually use Elemental Drain. So this is Major Breach, which is like loads more damage at range, so we can get like stupidly high damage at range, even more so than we had before. And we get the Minor Magicka still, which is more sustain, so that's just 3 damage, 3 sustain. Why wouldn't you? We still use Crushing Weapon, and all the other skills are the same. The only thing is though, that you have to cast this skill in order to proc the set, so both sets are active on the front bar. What we do instead is we put the Veteran Maelstrom staff on the back bar, which means our Wall of Elements is on the back bar, so we can cast Blockade of Frost as a defensive skill on the floor and sit inside it, which means anybody that comes near us will get chilled, and if they are chilled, they get immobilized. And what's really cool is this absorbs projectile damage, so it means we can cast this, sit inside the area, and be immune to range damage for a little bit, and the shield follows you for like 5-6 seconds. So this is a really, really good thing for like battlegrounds, or just sort of hold your spot sort of matches and zero dome stuff. So really, really good. As you see again, Soul Trap's the flex spot. We are using a Destruction Staff on the back bar and on the front bar. So you could go down and use any skill on here. If you really want, you could put this on there if you like, which can work well. So you can go here, and then on the front bar, what you can do is put Crush and Shock instead of Elemental Drain. You do your heavy attack, then you do Crush and Shock at the end. But that's kind of the sort of support role where you get access to just sort of shield for everybody, which is nice from range damage. Major Breach, which reduces physical and spell resist, and Magicka sustain for everybody. And if you really want, you can just put on just a heal over time instead from one of the DK skills, so there's a few options. All the other stuff is exactly the same, but this is much better in BGs and in hold your sort of round fights. The other one's much better for just all content and duels and stuff, so both are really, really effective. I'm going to go through the CP before the gear because that does make a lot of sense. And before I do so, I just want to say a huge thank you to those Patreons. Like, your support allows me to make these videos, so it's really, really appreciated. And if you want to get access to the videos early and support myself and the channel, there's a link in the description, but I don't feel you have to. Just liking, commenting, and sharing really, really helps. And don't forget to check that you're subscribed. As for the CP, this has been min-maxed, so just feel free to pause it, rewind it, go back and check it. This works for both setups, by the way. One thing to note about Thaumaturge is on the USP build editor, this doesn't buff heavy attacks on the editor, but it actually does in game. So I did test that, so that's why we have someone here, in case you're unsure. You know, it does actually work. So that's the CP. I'm now going to go through the damage gear. You can have a look at what they are. The sets are exactly the same, it's just how we lay out the weapons, so that's all it is. Now, what's really, really special about this gear is it gives us damage, lots of damage from the just sets, which means our glyphs can be whatever we like. If you need health, just put on health. If you need more damage, put on Magicka. If you need more sustain, put on regen. Like, changing the glyphs doesn't really affect the damage massively, so you get a lot of flexibility with this, which is really, really good. For the damage version, I use the Maelstrom Lightning Star front bar, or if you don't have access to that, you could simply go down and put on Willpower. I would recommend having Infused, by the way, and Shock, just because the Shock glyph actually procs Concussed on the target, which sets them off balance when they're in the Wall of Elements, so we get a big 70% damage boost. So would recommend having Infused Shock on the front bar. We then use Restoration Staff of Undaunted Infiltrator, defending. This can be powered, it can be whatever you like in the runs to, but defending's the best for bulk. Valken Scoria for just more raw damage. Penetration is the best form of damage, but you can change this to some other stuff. This is heavy, tri-stat. Our chest is medium, Jack of the Undaunted Infiltrator, tri-stat. All of my gear is in-pen, by the way, but again, you can change it to reinforced if you want more bulk but take more crit damage or more divines. The damage difference isn't massive, so in-pen was the best sort of all-round in my experience. We use Shoulders of Undaunted Unweaver, we use Sash of Undaunted Unweaver, Gloves of Undaunted Unweaver, Breeches of Undaunted Unweaver, and Boots of Undaunted Infiltrator. With this setup, these come from dungeons sadly, so you have to farm them. So we end up having some from the Arts Corinium, and there's also some from the place where you get Bloodspawn. I forget his place now. But yeah, that place, wherever you get Bloodspawn from. They are a bit annoying to farm, in all honesty, but it's definitely worth doing so. And for the jewellery, the setup's exactly the same in both setups, by the way. We have Undaunted Unweaver neck, with Undaunted Infiltrator ring, and we have Markarth just for more damage. What's really cool about this is these are all infused, so you can go all regen. You drop about 200 to 300 damage per tick of the heavy attack, so it's about 1800 to 2000 damage per heavy attack, which is, you're doing 18 to 20k anyway. It's not a big loss, but you gain like 700 regen, so you can do that if you want more sustain. I find typically having 2 spell damage and 1 magic recovery is the best, almost all round, but if you want to have damage a bit higher, go with 3 spell damage. What's nice about Markarth, by the way, is Markarth does actually boost this set here. So this is 1685 on your light and heavy attacks, and then we pair this one, which is again another 1685, so they both add together, and Markarth buffs it by 25%, and Molten Armor buffs it by 50%, so we get a big damage boost. If for some reason you don't have access to Markarth though, don't panic. Go up to the setup here, and all you want to do is change this piece to Valken Scoria, and you put Epaulets of the Undaunted Unweaver, and you just need to get an Unweaver ring. That's really important. So if you don't have Markarth, just simply change it like that. You put this as Undaunted Unweaver ring and Valken Scoria there. If you are on any setup though, you can change the monster set to be kind of what you need. So options include things like this. Chokerthorn gives you more recovery, which if you find sustain hard, this is the best one for you. If you want just more health to stay alive, because that buffs your heals, go with Trainee, that's the best health one you can get. If you want more bulk to have more resistance, go with Mighty Tudor. If you want more damage, which is like spell damage, that will give you healing a little bit higher on Flame Lash, for example, then you want to go and have Molokina or Balorg. Alternatively, you could go with just a set that gives you 1 piece spell damage. If you want to have just more max stats to work with, which buffs your damage as well, makes sustain a bit easier, go with Swarm Mother or Doma House. That gives you stamina and magicka for 1 piece, so that's a really good thing. And if you want to just have the sheer damage, go with Valken Scoria. The penetration is the best form of damage. But that's the sets for the first setup for the high damage. As with the second setup, which actually is literally identical, the only difference is how we rotate the weapons. On the front bar, we put the Lightning Staff. So we have Undaunted Infiltrator Lightning Staff on the front bar. We have this as an infused shock glyph, which procs more often. It gives us access to concussion, which is nice. And we have access to the Maelstrom Ice Staff on the back bar. It doesn't need to be perfected. That's just, as you can tell, I'm on the PTS to do the build part of this video, so that's why I have stupid gold. I'm actually quite poor in game, so you can help me if you want in game. That's really, really appreciated. But that's the ice stuff there. So that's literally all that changes. I just literally swap these weapons around, and that's it. Everything else is exactly the same. But that there is the sets, the skills, the gear. And the last thing that's really useful to consider is whether to be a vampire or not. I find in my experience that being a vampire is like 100% worth it. Like, just having access to the Undeath passive makes this really hard to kill because you have such a big health pool. So Undeath, if you're unaware, that gives you 15%, but when you get to stage 2, it's a 30% damage reduction. This is like Mark of the Prior in a passive, and you can use this on both setups. The trade-off is that you do take slightly more flame damage, and your normal skills cost slightly more, so that's why I typically go 1 regen on my normal build. But you can go 2 if you find sustained a bit too hard, or just use the Elemental Drain version. That's another option there. But having Undeath will give you the bulk that you need to survive. This is like worth about 5 to 10,000 armor in PvP. So when we actually buff up with our armor and stuff, you can see that actually our armor is on 22k and 17k. You get typically about 8 to 10,000 with the Undeath passive on average, which means we have like 30k spell resist and about 25, 26k physical. So you're actually quite bulky with just that one passive. So I would highly recommend being a vampire for this, but personal choice, as I said. But yeah, that's everything you need to know for this build. If you've got any questions, do leave comments. if you like these kind of videos and how I break them down, then do obviously like and make sure that you are subscribed. And I just want to say a huge thank you once more to those Patreons. Like, your support, as I said, really, really helps. And if you want to support myself, the channel, there's a link in the description. See the videos early and all that good stuff, but don't feel you have to. But with this one, I'm just going to wrap it up here because it's long enough as it is. Any questions, as I said, just leave a comment. And if you want to see a written guide, go to unifiedgaming.org. There's a written guide on there following this video about 2 or 3 days afterwards, so you can go there to see it there. But yeah, that's it. Make sure that you subscribe to see the follow-up gameplay where I go through and break down what we're doing. I had a match recently where I had 65 kills to 1 death, so it works really, really well. But as I said, I'm going to wrap this one up here. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care, and bye.